Hi, I'm Carcino.
Oh, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
No one knows Carcino and none of these.
There's so much going on in the world, and I'm just giving my 2 cents on it.
Go in and do a raid at someone's house, but you don't have an arrest warrant for them. Yo, what doing Rockefeller's contracts, man? What happened to the contracts, the deals? That's what people was like, man, what was going on over there? It was James Bond time, buddy. You see it firsthand. Jay-Z, Dame Dash, and Biggs were the ones that were gonna make the money. Nobody was going to be rich on Rocafella Records. That's how the contracts were designed. The same deal that they had that was screwed up was the same deal they ended up with. All of them. Straight up and down. Now, if you want to look at it and pick it apart, it's really simple. If you look at like what Cam and those guys did in the beginning when they were out doing their thing, they were making more money hustling than being on Rockefeller. What they were doing was getting gifts. You know what I'm saying? Like everything they was doing, they were receiving gifts for. Back in those days, if they were bringing in new artists so they could eat off of them, they thought Jay was their boy because they seen him and he was hanging out with him and in the studio with him. Like he was one of them. State property. They didn't have any idea to know that they were getting screwed over. So for the day Rockefeller was formed, it was never for the artists to make money. Those contracts and those deals and those cuts, you were never going to make the money. They just wanted to be the ones in charge. It started out with, yo, we going to go all the way to the top. And when you got people with different visions, as I told you on my Patreon, this thing was going to take to a whole nother light. Once Jay blew up, his plan was to retire since Reasonable Doubt. And next thing you know, he's going to write for other artists like Bleak. And then he blew up off Hard Knock Life 2. And Jay focus was Jay. Then they started signing artists so that they could eat off them. Benny Siegel, Bleak, all those guys, they were going to eat off them and get more rappers to come in. They were trying to mold them into stars and eat off them. That was it. The contracts wasn't designed for them to win. It was designed for them to lose. Jay was a street rapper off the block. Everybody else was just meant to be the suckers, the food. You were never going to make it. They just wanted to be the ones in control. Priority came through and they had a wicked deal with them. Like, it was on Priority, Freeze. It was all these record labels eating off this album. Jay was never going to get what, he thought he could achieve with Reasonable Doubt. Now, the narratives on these subjects never ever came to fruition. Jay was out there scrambling and scraping. I'm going to tell you all this. Jay-Z is older than LL Cool J. Seriously, and they act like LL's this relic, but Jay-Z's older than him. He just started out late. Jay-Z didn't become famous till like he was about 30. He was almost 30 before he blew up. So when you see Jay now on stage, almost 60, you like, wow. Yeah, man, I keep forgetting. Jay just kind of blew up like 30 years ago, man. It's crazy. Well, the internet is controlled by people with TikTok hands and all that. But if you start going through rappers' contracts, they're paying Jay-Z as an artist, meaning the artist that has him on his records. Let's say he rap on Freeway album. Freeway's paying for Jay-Z to be there and don't know it. Jay ain't rapping for free. It's like, well, this is for him. He on the album. We get bars for free from Jay. No. Jay is eating off you, off your budget. You're paying him for his time. Every verse, every time he do anything, you're paying him. Your contracts are not designed for you to be successful. The most these artists ever was going to be was gold. If they was going platinum, that was great. But they were there to be Jay-Z's muse. All of them. State Property, all of them was, basically bought to be food. All the back-end money, that was going to Rocafella. That was going to Jay, them Biggs, Dame. They were getting nothing. They didn't even own the name State Property. If they wanted to, they could stop them from using that name. They own the name State Property. They tried to put Benny Siegel in charge of it. It's like, Beans, look, we're going to help you get some bread. Because Beans is like, man, I ain't getting no money either. None of them was eating. But to keep Beans happy and to keep him around, they're like, look, we don't put you in charge of State Property and reboot you. Like, this your group. This your crew. Jay was like, I'm stepping back. And when he first came out, State Property was his boys. That's how they was making it. Then they was like, oh, you know what? Jay started to get away from them. Jay was like, I need to get away from them. I'm turning into Euro J. And as he started to turn more and more into Euro J, everybody had to fade to black. So the contracts and the points, they were doing 360 deals before there were 360 deals. Leo and them had them doing 360 deals from the jump because Jay was in a bad contract and Def Jam bailed them out. Def Jam bailed them out of a bad deal. And because they got bailed out of a bad contract, it was like almost like, man, we owe you, dog. Like you did X, Y, and Z for us. Thank you. But, we kind of owe you. Because we was in the hole, bruh. Straight up. And that's facts. Bleak ain't have to worry about the contract. Bleak was going to be all right. Because Jay was going to take care of him. But contract-wise, Bleak was screwed. But Jay was really pushing for him to get paid because Jay was getting paid as an artist and everything else, a writer. Studio time, they had to pay for studio. Man, it was eating. Dog, I swear, ask State Property, have any of them made any money? Ask Oskino. Now, you saw Jay pop out with them dudes, right? That's a one-time event. They got to go right back to their struggle. And won't nobody think about it again. Y'all have already forgotten about it. They hoping they get to pop out at Jay-Z too. Man, after you tried to smother young Chris' career, why don't you go up there and be seen with young Chris? Why don't you get up there and do what you're supposed to do? These contracts were signed to screw them over. Nobody was made to be successful under these deals. Not one of them. Only Dame, Biggs, and Jay. They were the ones gonna eat. They were the only ones rich. Benny Siegel didn't have two Bentleys. They were leasing those cars. Dame got embarrassed because he got laughed at because he was driving a Bentley. And Puff was like, "You drive your own Bentley?" And he was embarrassed. They was laughing at Dame like, "Oh." Puff was just asking because he was shocked. Like, he was like, "Yeah, you see my Bentley?" He's like, "Yeah, that's mine." He's like, "You drove it?" He's like, "Yeah, you drive your own Bentley?" And he said that like, "Oh," because Puff was really asking like, "Yeah, it looked nice, but you drove?" Like Puffin, like I ain't never drove my Bentley. Dame, ever since then, Dame wanted to drive. Yo, tell somebody to pick me up. Tell them to take one of my cars to the crib, and when I call them, they gotta come pick me up in it. But he gave from that day on, he gave that Bentley to Benny Siegel, and then it was supposed to be a gift, and then Jay and them had another Bentley that he was paying, that he had to pay on that. It was like $800,000 that he was taking advance money out from the company, but he was taking over the notes and got two of them. He gave his mother a Bentley, and then he had one. And he had two notes because they was leased. And they basically just turned over the lease paperwork over to Beans. The only way Beans was eating is when Dame was trying to get a clothing line. He was warm with Jay. They was having that turmoil inside the company. And Dame is like, "I'ma show you. I can make anybody like in Rocafella a star." Jay-Z and Rocafella, after that, it was like, "Yo, Biggs," they started losing money hand over fist. They started to see Biggs wasn't really, Jay was like, "I really ain't got no need for Biggs no more. Nah, I am Biggs. Like I want to be the big guy on top." Like, but overall, the company was losing money. They were spending more money than what they were returning or getting in on returns. The Young Gunners, Chris and Neef, that album flopped. They had a lot of flops with their projects. Benny Siegel's second album flopped. Like it sold like 300,000. It was awful. And they were like, "What happened?" It was just production wise, everything. A lot of people wasn't feeling the truth or the reason or whatever. The second album by Benny Siegel flopped. They had two flop projects in a row. Then Blueprint 2 underperformed. And they had to spend more money trying to make a smaller release to try to salvage it because people weren't running out buying it. All because of the results of Ether. So now people had to get released from staff. Things were changing after 9/11 and things of this nature, and people was just burnt out. They was burnt out from like Rockefeller and all that stuff. They was just done. It had run its course. So they knew Pivot was gonna have to change. And then here you got the 50 Cent wave going on at that time. And it was like, this is it. Jay's gonna get up out the game. And once he left and tried to come back, anybody who was there was getting screwed. Like Kanye West had a bad deal. This dude sold like 10 million records right out of the gate. Then he come back with another multi-platinum album. So they was like, man, Kanye West is keeping the lights on. But it wasn't enough. Because once again, they were eating off those albums. Do Kanye own his masters? to the college dropout? Do Kanye own his masters to his second album? His third album, Graduation? They won't even sell him his masters back. That's why he don't really care about those albums. He could perform those songs and get paid and tour around the world. Because they know if they tour those songs, they're going to get paid. They're going to get money. Jay-Z and Biggie, they were acquaintances. Jay was finna sign the worst deal of his life. He was finna leave Rocafella and sign with Biggie now to another badass deal. But he was gonna be able to write for everybody else. He was gonna get out of Rocafella and sell his shares. He was willing to go because he wanted to be famous so bad. He was already planning to leave. And then Hard Knock Life came. Big died, so all that plan left. They was like, oh yeah, we're gonna do the commission where everybody finna get paid and their contracts is finna pop off. Man, the whole place they can keep. No. They just gotta realize that what they think is the ultimate being, the max, that's normally nothing for another artist. Dude, they put so much on. If they went back and hired a forensic attorney to look at their deal, Chris and Eve and all those dudes, they would see that they got screwed over. If Kanye really wanted to go to war with them and see how much he was being billed when he didn't even use their studios really to record his album, then don't forget this, The Chain Gang Volume 2, another flop from State Property. Then here comes Cameron. Come Home With Me. They got Cam out his deal with Epic Records, got him out of a bad deal. Brought Cam and Dipset in because they had the streets. They had the young streets. Jay didn't have those dudes. Cam them had it. Because they were about clothing line, fashion, everything. But they only had Cameron. They didn't have Dipset. They didn't have Jimmy. They didn't have Jewels. Cam did. So Dane was going into films and making movies and doing it that way. Jay has never proven he can really get in that market and be successful. Like they had one project that really did well, and that was The Harder They Fall. Other than that, everything else they produced has been, otherworth trash. So now there is no Rocafella Records. It had gotten dissolved because it was so far under money and done. They blew the whole thing up and rebranded the company. So Rocafella Records, everything in there, paperwork, all that stuff's gone. So who ate off the Graduation album? All of them did. So Kanye West came through and made them a billionaire. Freeway album did all right on its release, but nothing like it was like slated to do. Beans did what it did. But College Dropout, my God, it covered everybody's album. And Kanye produced like 90% of the album. They when they released the budget, that all went to Kanye because hell, him and everybody who rapped on there, they made that album. So understand us when we tell you this. They had managers getting paid for things that they weren't even their managers. It was like, who are these people? How are they eating? They're eating off us. Dude, if they go back and look at those contracts, they're gonna see who's really got their publishing. They're not eating off anything. They get no residual checks. I think Beanie Siegel probably would get more of his album that he released under Dame Dash Music Group than they've done on Rocafella. Because all they were getting was upfront money. So the only way they would get paid if they go out and perform and do shows. We're in 2026. Artists still got to go perform and do shows to get paid. And they can produce the entire record. It's just that now the record labels get to eat more off your tours. I remember when all that money was yours. You do the shows, that's your money. The records, that's ours. The record company is making about 98% of the money, if not 99%. The artist is getting less than 1%. Little something to think about. So on that note, we up out. Peace.